Bureau. Thankfully, this is not a long-distance call because the world is so incredibly small. Instead of saying good afternoon, I should say good morning to Sam Kendricks, who is joining us from Tokyo, Japan. If you need a quick refresher, Sam is an officer in the United States Army Reserves. He is a 3-time indoor and 6-time outdoor national champion, a 2016 bronze medalist in the Olympics, a 2017 and 2019 world champion, and he holds the American pole vault record at 6.06 meters, and he is on your radio right now. Sam, thanks for a few minutes of your time. Good morning.
Well, I've got nothing but time, Rich, and I'd love to spend all of it with you.
Well, I really appreciate that. So let's just walk through the story, and then we'll get to questions and talk some pole vaulting and your future and all those other things. But kind of take us through leaving Oxford, heading for Tokyo, what you had to go through in terms of testing, and then ultimately what happened.
Well, any Olympic plan starts years out, actually. You in 2019, after winning the World Championships, you just remarked my second one. And being the only guy to win a world championships in this event in the last 20 years, you say, okay, how do I develop a plan to make this next Olympics successful? And that was in 2020 at the time. By June, my outdoor season was canceled, and I'll be swift, trust me. You get to 2021, and they say, we're going to have it. But you don't know what deals they make on the way. Everybody reads all the fine print. They think they can. They go to the Olympic trials in 2021. You make your team the hardest team to make in the world. You buy your ticket, and then they tell you what your entry procedures are. The entry procedures going into Tokyo, which I was completing in the last few days, were to provide negative self-coronavirus tests administered just like any doctor would. I've had experience administering these tests because I've taken them all over the world in 20 countries in the last 2 years. People think I've been locked down at home, but that's absolutely not the case. I would never do such a thing. I've been traveling, trying to keep the sport alive for 2 years. Now, as I get into Tokyo, we go through the airport, and you must, once again, offer yourself up for a PCR test, a 40-cycle PCR test, and I was able to pass that with a negative and be admitted to the village. No sooner being in the village after one sleep, I delivered a saliva sample, just like every athlete is forced to do every single day. Thursday morning, the following day, it comes back as inconclusive. It's retested. I have a PCR test administered in the fever ward after being escorted, muzzled up over to the fever ward in the village, and I'm delivered a positive test by a Japanese doctor I don't know. And summarily, after a small briefing from USOC, shuttled off to a hotel I know not with who or know not where.
Okay, explain what a 40-cycle PCR test is.
Well, a PCR test is a test that it's continuously ramping up and enumerating cycles to detect the virus. If it doesn't detect the virus in the first, it ramps up the system and it continues the test. So the lower the score, the more detectable the virus is in you. It's called a CT score. My CT score on my first test, if anybody cared, was a 36. Depends on where you go in the world, how many cycles they use. Now, according to the Japanese protocol, a positive test is a positive test is a positive test. It doesn't matter if you can produce a negative test 20 times in a row. Their protocol says you're out of the Olympics. And I knew that going in. Everybody knew that. And I had every intention of providing every single test a negative. Who wouldn't? I was even let into the country, let into the village with negative tests all around. But it wasn't until afterwards that I realized the fine print was you've given up your freedom for the next 10 days and you're stuck in a hotel of not your own choosing, with not your own people.
So that's one of the really interesting parts. We're visiting with Sam Kendricks, 2016 bronze medalist in the Olympics, 2-time world champion pole vaulter, a couple of national championships when he was at Ole Miss as well. So once you tested positive, you are now subject to Japan's protocol. And that is 10 days in quarantine in a hotel that is separate with very little contact to the outside?
Well, the word they don't use is quarantine. The word they use is isolation. It's a monitoring service. They put you in a hotel room. You're not allowed to open the window. You're not allowed to leave your room for the 10-day period except to pick up meals. And they monitor you by phone. They tell you when to pick up your meals by intercom. It's really all rather odd. Being promised the world going to the Olympics, I won't profess to be a victim of this. I won't let it knock me down. But you really kind of seems like a slap in the face when you're promised the world as an honored guest. There are other ways to conduct a holding cell for people who came to your Olympics and were found wanting, in my opinion.
I don't want to put words in your mouth, Sam. I don't. And so this is a question, not a statement. Does it feel like you're in prison right now?
Well, I've never spent time. I would prefer to spend this sentence. I would prefer to spend this sentence in the Lafayette County Detention Center. I can tell you that. You have access to your own doctor and such. If I did have an issue, and I haven't been sick, I've never in my life have I been cooked up, even under military orders and in barracks or any regard for this long in my entire life. And that's how you make a guy sick. I try to be jovial about everything, but when it comes to the Olympics, that was the first thing I got over. The reputation loss. In my sport, you truly are, and thank you for enumerating my accolades, but you truly are, in the eyes of the world, only as good as your last one. And in the eyes of the world, my last one, I didn't compete.
Yeah. Was this a gold medal year for you, Sam?
Well, I will tell you this, that I am stronger than I have ever been before. I've often said, and this is, if you go back and watch press conferences and interviews since I've been winning world championships and winning national championships, that I understand innately what this sport means, and victory doesn't belong to you. I would call myself a contender, and everybody would give me that moniker, a contender, everywhere I go, no matter the competition, no matter the stakes. And I take that with me in solace. Perhaps not a gold medal, but perhaps so. You never know what happens in the Olympics. I know everybody's story is altered slightly when they come to an Olympic Games.
All right, let me try this a different way, because I know you're confident, but you're humble as well. Who won the pole vaulting competition last night?
My friend Mondo Duplantis won the pole vault competition. I am the only man to have beaten him in the last 2 years since he broke the world record. He was my vice champion at the last World Championships, and he still serves that role. At this Olympics, he is the Olympic champion, and my counterpart in the USA, Chris Nielsen, is the silver medalist.
What was the height that Mondo Duplantis cleared to win gold yesterday?
Mondo jumped 6.02 meters with no misses to net the victory. He also went on to attempt the world record, as he often does when he wins. I have jumped against Mondo. I have actually been made the world's best loser jumping against this phenomenal friend and jumper from Sweden. I have jumped higher than any man in history for second place. And even so, he is yet hard to beat, but not impossible. I was able to defeat him, and I'm not boasting. I was able to defeat him under poor conditions in Newcastle, England, just months ago. And that was kind of the only chink in the armor, as if it were poor conditions. But I'm a constant planner. I'm constantly looking for a way to boost my effort, and I always continue to encourage my competitors. I tried my best from here, even though I wasn't able to watch the competition.
You told me that this morning when we visited, and that was kind of a stunner to me. So you are in isolation in a hotel that the Japanese organizing committee has specified this is where you have to go, and yet there's no way for you to watch the Olympics in your hotel/prison cell?
There is a 19-inch TV here that plays the Japanese Olympics on TBS, but they did not show the pole vault last night because I do not believe a Japanese athlete was in it. My friends in the Japanese ranks as athletes didn't make the final, and I think their policy is not to show it unless a Japanese athlete is really competing well. So, do you have internet access? I do. It's funny. The essential amenities considered for human captivity now are not necessarily fresh air, yard time, and hot food. It's considered a Wi-Fi and a little bit of air conditioning. But the funny thing about this hotel is I don't think the neighborhood knows that we're here. I think the Japanese are truly trying to keep us out of the eye of everyone because some deal was signed with the devil, perhaps to let the USOC in, but they did not necessarily look down every eventuality when they're trying to figure out what's going to happen to the people who fall between the cracks. I won't say that, I was talking to many veterans in the past of Olympics, and they say if you're going to go to a lot of the Olympics, Kendricks, one of them's gonna change your life for sure, and everyone certainly does. And this one has changed it in a little bit different way.
Sam, are you good to hang with us for a few more minutes?
Absolutely.
Great. We're going to continue the conversation with Sam Kendricks, United States Olympian, 2016 bronze medalist, two-time world champion. I don't know if you caught the math there. 6.02 meters was the winning height yesterday. Sam Kendricks set the American pole vault record at 6.06 meters in 2019. Just food for thought. We'll continue our conversation with Sam Kendricks on the Farm Bureau phone line after this timeout. Continuing our conversation on the Farm Bureau phone line with Sam Kendricks, Olympic medalist, world champion pole vaulter, and currently isolated in a hotel room, I deemed it a prison cell, in Tokyo, awaiting the opportunity to return to the United States. So where are you in terms, Sam, of your isolation timeline?
I'm currently in my 7th of 10 days. I sit geographically 4.1 miles from the U.S. Embassy and 1.2 miles from the Olympic Village, kind of triangulated there in the central northeast Tokyo.
So you'll be able to get on a plane on Friday and come home, is that right?
I believe 7th does not count as the 7th day, so Saturday I can get out. Hopefully, perhaps Saturday evening I'll be on a plane home, maybe home Sunday. That's best case scenario.
Yeah. Well, I know you're anxious to get home, and folks are going to be anxious to welcome you home as well. A couple of things that you said that piqued my interest. You were talking about Mondo Duplantis and the relationship that you guys had, but you said Mondo has a tendency, after he has secured a victory, to then attempt the world record. Explain how that works in terms of, like, the sport of pole vaulting.
Absolutely. Let me give you a little primer of the sport. The vaulting event is contested not until a man jumps the highest, but until there's one man left in the competition that has proved himself to be separate. Two men can jump the same height, and one can be the winner. That was the same case in 2019 when I won against Mondo. We both jumped 5 meters 97, but I did it in fewer attempts. Now, over the course of the competition, there is a progression. You start the bar at a specific place, and you work your way up. I often use golf as an analogy because it's a great one. You carry a bag of clubs. They're vaulting poles, but instead of starting on your driver, you actually start on your putter, and you work towards your driver. The bigger the driver, the higher end sometimes you can achieve, especially in the big competitions. Now, when you win, you automatically attain the privilege of setting the bar wherever you want outside of progression. Mondo is the American. I mean, he is the world record holder. He was actually a former American record holder through a loophole in the loophole in the rules. But when he wins a competition, he often says, "No other bar is worth it to me. I will attempt the world record," which he has already set for himself. His highest jump outdoors is 6 meters 10. The Olympic record is 6 meters 03. I'll have to ask him when I call him today why he did not attempt an Olympic record, but instead went for another world record. The world record hasn't been set in the Olympics in a long, long time. So perhaps that was the statement he was trying to make, that even if I wasn't in the games, it would have been an uncontested eventuality. I believe he had another bar beyond 6:02 in him, but he decided to take his win in the evening with world record attempts.
So there's some showmanship in this, if I'm hearing it right. Is that something that you've done? If you feel comfortable, if it feels like the conditions are right to take a shot at a world record or to try to push to a new personal record?
Absolutely. You know, this sport is, in order to keep it fresh, with a constantly churning, youthful energy, you must be able to, as a veteran, understand that you have to transcend just the winning, just the games at some point. I know I travel and compete all over the world. That is my bread and butter. That is my livelihood. I go to lots of events, and sometimes they're one evening, and very rarely do I have the opportunity to boost my career through an Olympics. Most of the time I'm going to compete at various tours and championships around the world. I'm invited there to jump against their champions and put them to the test. But when you win a competition, you get to, perhaps attempt their record. The records of our sport compare you to the past lives that have lived it, and that's what's so special. That if I go to a competition, there is a meeting record, there's a stadium record, there's a national record, there's an area record. Everybody loves to break records, so you just try to find one that you can break to give the crowd a cheer. At the Olympics, it seemed, I think Mondo read the field and said, no other jump would really matter to me except a world record, and he is certainly good enough to do that. I've touted Mondo's horn. I have been his greatest advocate in the sport. I have seen him coming from a long way away. We have shared many, many great duels in the past. We just hope that it culminated here in 2021, and I think he bears a little bit of loss at my disqualification, perhaps just as much as me.
Sam, if you had been competing in the finals last night, and let's say you had secured the gold medal, would you have taken a shot at the world record?
Absolutely not. When it comes to championships, I have often said that the world record is not my destiny. I said that right after my world championship win in Doha in 2019. That was kind of a very eye-opening moment for a lot of people about how to view into the life of Sam Kendricks. My goals in the sport didn't transcend my life. They didn't transcend my hometown. I realized that, I have been given so many gifts. God has just given me and blessed my life with so many things to be thankful for. And to just seek immortality through a world record kind of put a damper on all the other things I was able to do through those gifts. And I said it wasn't in my destiny in a press conference, and everybody laughed. And I said, I think it's in Mondo's. And no sooner than 3 months later did he break the world record at one of the most meteoric rises in the history of the sport when it comes to somebody improving very, very quickly. He and I have been fast friends for a long time, and we will go out and duel in this sport again for sure. We bring the best out of one another.
Yeah, it's going to be fascinating to continue to watch this. This is was supposed to be your second Olympic Games. I think you're 28. Is that right? That's correct. So what is the career lifespan for a pole vaulter that is in good shape? Stays healthy. At these Olympic trials, I was one, if not the oldest competitor. I'm certainly the oldest man on the vaulting Olympic squad. Now, in the past, 20 years ago, perhaps your pole vaulters were more mature athletes, probably starting their career a few years after college. It takes maturity. It takes skill. It takes a lot of confidence and mentality to be good in this event in the past. Now it's replete with young men. And I realize now that they are pushing up from the bottom. And I have been able to go toe-to-toe with all the young generations for years now. I'm considered an older guy in the sport, and I maintain that I will continue in this sport as long as I can. My whole model is around consistency and repeatability. I'm considered the most consistent pole vaulter in the history of the world. I'm considered one of the greatest American champions that ever was able to go and compete for Team USA. I did not give myself these titles. These are things that I worked for, not chasing the world record, but filling in the gaps that I knew would give me the best success at my goals and my family's goals. 2024 in Paris, is that on your radar? Absolutely, but I certainly won't go if these conditions like this are looming. I love Paris. I jump in Paris all the time. I've actually got a meet scheduled in Paris in 2 weeks, and I'll be going to compete there. I jump well in Paris, and I'll be jumping against Mondo and the French champion Renaud Lavillenie, who was a former world record holder, who I cut my teeth jumping against in the beginning of my career, and Olympic champion. But they are good hosts in Paris, and I don't think that under these circumstances I would be ousted to a hotel. I think I would even be let go under my own power, which is what a free man only wants. Let me have my freedom, and I will take care of it myself. Well, 4 more days, and you're going to get it. Forgive me if this question is out of line. I know you're a happily married man and have been for a number of years, and your Olympic Village experience this year was extremely limited. There's this reputation of the Olympic Village being this like land of debauchery. Is it as bad as it is made out to be, just kind of from your observations? Well, in 2016, I will tell you that, you bring 16,000 young people and coaches together, you're going to get a bunch of that. I was not a participant, and anybody that's serious about going to the Olympics and performing is not involved in any of that. But I can tell you that most people go to the Olympics without a medal in mind. They actually go as a vacation. It's kind of a highlight event of their life. There's lots of free things and free trips and lots of new connections to make abroad. Some people meet their spouses there. Some people come home with more than just gear. But at this Olympics, I think it was a. I hear you. Okay,
but at this Olympics, it was kind of shrouded in confusion about, hey, can you even stop the surge of the young people? And I think optics is everything to the Japanese. Is they want to make sure that, hey, nobody's complaining from the outside of the village, nobody's getting together, nobody's breaking protocol from the interior of the village. But I would challenge any investigator not to be able to stress the protocols that they were going to be able to go inside.
Yeah. Sam, this is a remarkable story. I know it doesn't have the ending that any of us wanted for you, and certainly does not have the ending that you wanted for yourself, but we're excited to continue to watch your career, and I can't thank you enough for spending some time with us. I hope you can find something to fill your day for the next 3 or 4 days and then get back home.
I don't know if I've ever been bored in my entire life, Rich. I only hate that we only talked about me in this interview. Next time we'll have to catch up when I get back to town.
I look forward to seeing you. You are a remarkable athlete and an inspiration to a ton of folks back in Mississippi. We'll catch up soon. Thanks for your time, Sam.
Catch you later, Rich.
That's Sam Kendricks joining us on the Farm Bureau phone line from Tokyo, Japan.